So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I have a tremendous pleasure to be a host for the panel here at Cybersec. And I think it's worth to start by saying that obviously cybersecurity has a lot of different dimensions, right? So yesterday we spoke about risk management, we talked about cyber defense policies, we talked about regulations, AI, skills, so on and so forth. But there is yet another angle which is super important if we are talking about cybersecurity as such, and that's obviously the market perspective of the challenge. And that's exactly what we are going to discuss for next 45, 50 minutes or so. Yesterday, when I was also moderating a panel about cooperation in cyberspace from the military and civil perspective, I mentioned that Poland and Krakow is a perfect place for this type of a discussion because we truly understand geopolitical challenges which are basically present here in Europe and globally in a larger scale. But I would also say, in the context of this panel, that Poland is an exceptionally good place to discuss business. Why is that? Because Poland and the region in a broader sense is a place of a super vibrant cybersecurity community, startups, SMEs, even larger players that are building cybersecurity market and they are growing in a high speed. So I truly believe that this is going to be an excellent discussion to understand the characteristics of the region, but also how can we make even stronger our activities to boost cybersecurity market in the region, but also beyond. Few words just to provide the context for the discussion, and I believe that will allow us to zoom in a little bit more into the investment situation in cybersecurity market in the CEE region. So, ladies and gentlemen, EXO, as one of our, let's say, main priorities, focuses quite a lot on analyzing cybersecurity market in Europe. And what we observed, and please, sorry, I will repeat to some extent what was said yesterday by the representative of the European Commission, but I think it's going to be important context for the discussion that we are about to have. So obviously, cybersecurity market presents extremely attractive investment opportunity driven by continuous growth and also promising returns. But despite that, what we observe in Europe is that we still have certain challenges and certain limitations. Let me give you a couple of numbers that come from the reports and analysis that we do at EXO. So basically, what we observe is the fact that despite of this promising, as I say, investment segment, cybersecurity sector suffers in Europe from a 1.5 billion annual investment gap versus what is happening in the US. What we are observing is the fact that Europe's cybersecurity market is quite dominated by early stage funding. But what we see is that there is not enough capital for the companies that would like to grow. So basically, majority of the funding rounds and half of the volume of investment come from the Series A or lower rounds. So basically, if we are going up, then we do see a certain problem. When we are analyzing mergers and acquisitions, well, I'm not going to say anything super new to you. We clearly see that quite a significant number of those involve non-European players. So basically, what we can observe in the future, and maybe even we observe it today, is a little bit of company drain to the markets which are such as US or some other foreign markets. So these are the challenges, and what I would like to do during this panel is to understand how to overcome those barriers, those limitations, and also where is the CEE region in context of this larger picture. So I would like to start with Alexander, if I may, because obviously you do represent a person who understands the CEE region the best. So my question to you is, in context of the numbers and the larger situation in Europe, how do you see cybersecurity market in the CEE region? Where are we? What are the strengths of this part of Europe?
Hello, everybody. In terms of cybersecurity is a part of a larger, I would say, bucket, which is deep tech. And in terms of investment, there is a very, as you all you know, there is a very limited number of investment in this area so far. Cybersecurity should be taken into account from global perspective, not local one. And from a local perspective, Europe is far away behind US, CE is far behind EU. So we do not see this market is not much developed. So in terms of numbers, the startups the market from the investment into startups is growing significantly in the last few years. In 2021, 2022, the value of the market measured by us was around 4 billion zloty. Last year it was 2 billion only. We are having an insufficient number of institutions that are financing this market. But there are some signs that this is changing. The main problem of the CEE market is that the main funding for venture capital funds or later stage also VC funds is coming from the government. We are trying to change that, and maybe you will hear more in a few weeks, but we are trying to follow France. Where there was a program called TB from the professor that created it, and they were able to engage 13 million euro from the privately owned financial institutions to put into VC market in terms of commitments. So this is one source of financing for this market. The second is, so the first is government. The second is the private market that I was trying to explain the situation when there is almost no funding, and I hope it will change. And then we are having, of course, EIF. Patrick will tell more about that. So the numbers that you mentioned are not that large, I would say. We are having few examples in EU of huge successes. So one of the companies, one of few is AVG, sold to Avast later. But that was a Czech startups. In Poland, we do not have too much examples of this kind of successes, but the funding will come very soon. Maybe that's in short.
Thank you so much, Alexander, and I think that you brought a lot of very interesting points, and I will follow up on them very, very soon. Also to understand what is the reason for the fact that Poland lacks, to a certain extent, such as success stories. I mean, like, let's take a look across the border. Asset in Slovakia, Avast in Czechia, Bitdefender in Romania. I mean, what needs to be done in here so we could, you know, like 1 year from now, be discussing successful stories or Polish startups. Let's try to figure it out, but I will happily come back to you with those type of, let's say, considerations. But now I would like to move to Carlos. As was mentioned, Carlos does represent 33 and Ventures, but he's also, I'm super proud to say that, one of the chairs at EXO. He's leading our activities oriented at the market and investment related activities, and he's one of the, let's say, key brains behind the initiative that we are kind of like proud of, and we are trying and doing our best to materialize very concretely in the upcoming days. I'm talking about European Cybersecurity Investment Platform, a one solution that EXO proposed in order to constructively tackle the problems that we are just discussing. Carlos, if you could provide us a little bit with the insight on what the platform is, what how that can help with the situation that we are discussing.
Sure, Joanna, and good morning, everyone. So cybersecurity, it's really very strategic for Europe, and I think everyone is conscious of that. And there has been a long way done since 10, 15 years ago in several fronts. So first, now, the European cybersecurity spending market, it's roughly 30% of the global market, what makes it a very interesting market for every player that wants to be a global leader in cybersecurity. They need to come to Europe. But in terms of financing, and also a long way has been done, and things are now much better. But still, our quota of the global VC investment is still on the 10, 20%. And so there's this gap. And that's why a study that has been done with the IB Advisory Hub reached to the conclusion that this gap should be around between 1 and 2 billion per year. Now, what's the underlying problem to all of this? So on one side, we have the need of more capital. But then when we look at the substance, so we see that there is a lot of interesting technology coming from Europe. There has been put a lot of capital also on R&D, on supporting universities. A lot of early stage startups already exist across the region. And we've seen also enormous progress on that. Of course, it differs from region to region, but things have evolved quite a lot. What is lacking is how to support these companies to scale up and become global leaders. So we're not talking about having tech champions in Europe, we're talking about having global champions headquartered in Europe. And when we look at other geographies, what we see is that specialized support is key. This segment is ultra competitive, is ultra complex, and so having generalist capital entering into those companies also makes sense, but in later stages from the challenge that we still have. And so, on the other side, when we look to the European specialized VCs, there's a challenge because most European specialized VCs are local, are early stage, and they don't have the fund sizes, they don't have the capability to do the tickets that those scale-ups need. And so that's why the proposal has been done to set up this European cybersecurity investment platform to support these specialized investors to become bigger, to attract further specialized investors to the ecosystem, to give technical support to the regions in order for them also to develop their capacities. But what we are realizing is that besides having this idea and the consensus that such solution is needed, how to put this into execution is also a challenge, because most nations are allocating their efforts to local initiatives, and it's needed, a common effort is needed to set up this European Fund of Funds. And so now what we are doing from EXO is to bring this discussion to each country level, to make them sensitive that they need to allocate part of the resources also to the European project, and also try to bring private capital to the equation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carlos. And before I will move on with the question to Patrick, I would like to make sure that the audience is as engaged in the discussion as you can be. So after the question to Patrick, I would like to actually open up for the Q&A, because to be honest, I truly believe that panels are as valuable as interaction with the audience. So please start thinking about the questions that you might have, or comments, if you will. Patrick, coming back to you. So Carlos introduced the idea, and also for the benefit of the audience, I will mention that you are, and EIF, you are our key partners for the discussion about the platform. And you, as European Investment Fund, you have a vast experience in creating instruments of this kind. Just to mention fund of funds for AI or blockchain that has been in your portfolio for years. Now, if you're looking about the activities that you've been conducting in the field, helping with segments of innovative technologies, what is the secret sauce for the successful funds of fund when it comes to, I mean, by looking at your history and also trying to understand how shall we construct instruments of this kind for cybersecurity?
Good morning, everyone. Dzień dobry. Yeah, that's a very vast question indeed, Joanna. Indeed, at EF, we do have a track record today of managing fund of funds, managing mandates with the objective of bringing ecosystem to the next level and sometimes even constructing ecosystem from scratch. And we've done so with the money coming from EIB, from European Commission, from member states, but also from private investors. And we have done so. The first, I think, parameter that we have to keep in mind is that it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to change ecosystems in 1 year or 2 years' time. We started, for instance, in Germany. Germany, 20 years ago, the venture capital, the financing ecosystem for tech companies in Germany was inexistent 20 years ago. But with time and with the support of the local public investor, with the Ministry of Economy, we have been entrusted over time with 15 billion euros, close to 15 billion euros over 20 years. And today the German ecosystem is the one which is the most flourishing in Europe. We do so to actually solve a market failure. And the market failure is that there is a lack of initially private investors' appetite to invest in this type of companies. But the long-term objective of EF when we enter into such a type of mandates is to become redundant, to correct this market failure. So the way we're doing that is looking at venture capital funds which have an outstanding quality. It doesn't mean that we invest only in established fund manager. We do invest in first-time team, first-time funds in those ecosystems, but we make sure that they have already the basic key ingredients to raise a second fund, a third fund, and eventually over 6, 7 generation of funds become autonomous and independent from any public funding. And so these fund managers have a couple of characteristics. They're typically independently managed. They're not captive to a banking or a corporate institution. We have a particular incentive schemes so that they have skin in the game, but they're incentivized as well. One of the key characteristics that we have seen is that the most successful venture capital funds recently have at least one partner who was an ex-entrepreneur, an ex-serial entrepreneur. So we have set up a number of criteria that for us maximizes the chances of these VCs to become successful on the long run. Now, I've talked about the German model. It's not the only model. We have also partnered with several countries to develop ecosystem on a wider geographical remit, like in the Baltics, for instance. But we are also developing now mandates in basically public-private partnerships. So we invest money from EIB or European Commission together with member states for a first closing. And eventually, after this first closing, we attract corporate investors typically who are interested in developing specific ecosystem. So we have done that, for instance, in life sciences. It works pretty well. And we are ready to develop that in other areas such as deep tech, defense, potentially cybersecurity as well. And last but not least, all these partnerships and all these mandates that we have launched over time with public money, we have never lost money. Actually, we're not a grant provider. We're not subsidizing the market. Over the long run, we have a risk commensurate return objective. As a matter of fact, actually, we have over-delivered even in investing in ecosystem from scratch, developing markets from scratch. We have over-delivered on the financial returns with the public money that we're investing. So a lot of aspects for very simple questions.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for this comprehensive overview. I'm going to take a look at the audience as promised to spot any questions that you might have at this stage. Not sure, Luigi, if you raise your hand or you're just waving at me, most likely the latter. Okay, there is a question out there. Thank you so much for bringing the mic.
Hi, thank you. So, to what degree has Russia's war in Ukraine changed investment and development trends in the cybersecurity sector of Central and Eastern Europe?
Thank you so much. Excellent question. I will rephrase because I'm not sure if you heard it well. So the question was about the impact of geopolitical changes in the region and how does that impact investment in cybersecurity. Well, let's start with the representative that feels the situation firsthand.
We can see a significant change or the approach of the government to the funding coming from the geopolitical situation. Currently, cybersecurity is treated seriously, very seriously. The main problem is that we are still missing, as Patrick mentioned, we are missing the capital coming from private investors in CEE. They are just not investing the money. But the positive side of this, if I may say so, is that it always was the same in all countries, including US. In US, the VC started in Silicon Valley, where the government put a lot of money first, and then private investors followed them. The same was in France that I have mentioned. Same is in Germany, and same will be in Poland. So there will be, I hope, there will be much more institutions that will be offering funding for all startups and all companies in Poland offering cybersecurity solutions very soon. But we need to remember that it's, first of all, the government is having that, all governments are having deficit problems. So there is a limited number of cash from the government. So so currently the situation is much better than a few years ago. We are having NATO that created NATO Innovation Fund, 1 billion fund. We are having Diana accelerator for early stage startups. We are having few funds like OTB or Expeditions Fund and few others, including Carlos Fund. We will be having, I hope, a governmental owned fund or program for this sector. So we are progressing. However, you may not all of you be aware of what's going on. But the cash, this area is, as I said, treated very seriously, and we will see that soon.
Thank you so much, Alexander. And Carlos, I cannot help but actually turn the next question to you, because something tells me that something is wrong. I mean, like, maybe I live in a bubble, exo bubble, like being surrounded by VCs from all over the Europe, specialized VCs, being ready, asking for joint activities to invest. So, like, where is the problem? Like Alexander mentioned that we are still lacking people, private sector being ready to invest, to come into the story. That's not what we see when we are talking to each other, you know, in Brussels. I mean, like, maybe we need to somehow promote the fact that you exist and you are ready to change the situation.
Of course. Look, first of all, also complementing the answer, right? Because I think that the CEE region really has a unique opportunity to something on cybersecurity. If we look globally to the most powerful R&D or incubators for cybersecurity startups in the world, we see Israel. So a lot of technology coming from Israel. And why? Because there was a strong purpose to build that, right? And what we are seeing now is that the situation in Europe is changing. So we already have a lot of interesting technology coming from universities, but we are now being aware that there's also the purpose. Private organizations are already feeling this on the day-to-day because they are being attacked. The 5 to 6 trillion economical impact from cybersecurity and misinformation then doesn't come from nowhere. So this is a daily impact. And that's why, on now going to the private money, actually we had the luck to do the first closing of our fund just with private money. Right? And that's because our strategic investors also see this really as strategic for their activities. Right? The challenge is it's a bit different. It's not bringing private money. It's bringing private money at scale. And probably we need some catalysts to do it, right? Because the cybersecurity sector is quite powerful. So we're talking at 150 billion market growing at more than 10% per year during the last 10 years. We see so strong drivers, the economical risk that brings cybersecurity and misinformation, how horizontal it is. It applies to every vertical, government, defense. It's also in terms of the rate of renewal and consolidation. It's very dynamic, so it doesn't run out. And then there are enormous exit opportunities. In the last 20 years, we had close to 90 IPOs, 90 unicorns, right? 16 IPOs in the last 5. The M&A market is around 100 billion per year. And of course, this leads to very interesting returns. So the challenge for attracting more capital in Europe, it's not really the fact that they cannot have access to interesting returns. The thing is, when we are talking about a 100 million or 200 million fund, if an organization wants to do a significant ticket, they will end up with an overexposure to that fund. So we need to change this game.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Patrick, what is your thought on that? Do you think that what is happening geopolitically wise can help to a little bit unlock the potential and money, you know, like coming from the corporates or for other types of players that are not necessarily so active in the cybersecurity investment right now?
Yeah. I'd like to pick up on what Alexander said earlier. We're facing a problem in Europe, and a significant problem, not in cybersecurity only, but financing technology. We've made a huge step forward, a huge jump forward over the last 20 years. Today in Europe, we are competitive with the US and with Silicon Valley. In Europe, we create more technology companies per year than in the US. The venture capital funds in Europe are finally producing financial returns which are competitive to the US. In Europe, we're catching up in terms of unicorns, and that will be a topic of discussion. We're not there yet. We're still there is a fraction of unicorns compared to the US, but we're catching up. We see that in 10, 15 years, we'll have as many unicorns as in the US. But to get to the next level, to bring Europe to the Champions League in 10, 15 years, will require more money than what has been invested over the last 15 to 20 years. But at the same time, as Alexander said, most of the countries in Europe are having a deficit. So we cannot count on public funding anymore, or at least to the same extent as we have counted on over the last 20 years. So we have to look at mobilizing other sources of capital. And when I look at pension funds, the pension funds in Europe are investing a fraction of their assets compared to the US for venture capital. This is a source of funding which could be a game changer for financing the technology market in Europe. So we have to think about how to unlock this money. And of course, the pension funds in Europe are smaller than in the US, but proportionally, they're investing far less than their American peers into technology in Europe. The other source of funding, I've been actually caught by surprise. I was horrified actually to see that I've seen statistics of the 2 largest corporates in Germany and the 2 largest corporates in France the amounts that they're investing in their corporate venturing activity. So these big names are investing in startup companies as well, like all the corporates do. 50% of these 4 largest corporates in Europe, 50% of their amount is invested in companies in the US. 30% is invested in Asia. So what these large European corporates are investing into Europe is a fraction of the financial capabilities that they have. So there, I think we need also to have a mindset shift in this ecosystem, because as a matter of fact, we are realizing that in Europe we need to become more independent, more autonomous. We're talking now at European level of the European sovereignty. We realize that we cannot rely indefinitely and be completely blinded and rely on our North American partners. We need to be able to steer the economy in a much more independent way. And that can only be done if we find financing means to support the ecosystem and make this next jump over the next 15 to 20 years.
Thank you so much. I'm looking once again, and we do have a question coming from Luigi. So thank you so much for bringing the mic.
Thank you. So I don't want to be disruptive in this very professional discussion, but you know I like it. The question, and I'm a normal citizen, like all those here in the audience, who are very interested by cybersecurity. And Patrick just said we have to diversify the sources, pension funds, and so on. But I'm normal citizens of Central East Europe, and I have a little money. I see cybersecurity market growing. How can I put my money to get some good return as a citizen?
Gentlemen, do we have any good advice for a regular citizen to help us out to build the market here?
Unfortunately, not for now. It's more maybe a short explanation how this market works. So there are different ideas, startups. I think you know how it works. They receive majority of funding from private individuals at the very beginning, for example, but to be honest, in majority of cases of successful startups, the funding was coming from venture capital. I would say always. So venture capital is a market when there are many players investing in the ideas that they believe in, and they receive funding from the government or large institutional players like us, so PFR Ventures, EIF, and other institutions. So it's as the number of capital required to be an investor is huge, there is no place for individual investors. This market is very risky, so if you invest into a startup, you may lose your money on many startups when you invest in, but if you invest in a successful startup, you can get your money multiplied by 20, 40, or even more times. So as of now, there are no such opportunities. At least I do not see. I don't know how about my colleagues, but maybe there is a chance to change that. Maybe that's for now.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Patrick, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes. Well, confirming what Alexandra is saying is that it's very risky. There are some crowding platforms here and there in certain countries which allow us citizens investing in tech companies. But Luigi, this is part actually of the discussion of the CMU, the Capital Market Union. We're having discussions with the European Commission on how to structure investment vehicles that will allow unlocking the savings of citizens and exposing these savings to key sectors such as deep tech, defense, and cybersecurity. But it's a very tricky one because indeed the risk profile is very high, and we have to be careful the way we're managing the savings of the European Union citizens indeed. But the talks are ongoing. We haven't found the magical wand yet.
Well, the point is that I think you should change, somehow you should innovate once again. You should maybe create a financial product which is not, of course, managed by the citizens because it's a risky market, but somebody who is the professional, know the market, cybersecurity market, which is not trivial as other investment market, managed by you, but where citizens can put the money. And you know, little money, many citizens with little money makes a lot of money. So why not? And I think everybody can benefit and really put at the end because there is a return. I know the cybersecurity market when, well, Carlos was telling me years ago that when invest in 5 and 1 is you have a good exit, you're already beneficial. So you lose 4, but with the 1 beneficial, you win. But it's up to you to drive this.
Thank you so much, Luigi. Something tells me that yes, indeed, there is plenty of people in this room who would like to put a little bit of their money into cybersecurity segment. So who knows, maybe that's the future. But I would like to actually come back to something that was mentioned by Patrick. I mean the need for the change in the way how we see how we basically take decisions in Europe. You mentioned that a lot of money, European money, goes to the US or to the foreign markets. Yet we are still not having, you know, like a well-working cybersecurity market here in Europe, right? So money is there. The decision-making process is slightly distorted, if I can use this phrasing. And something tells me that we are still lacking this, let's say, belief that Europe is our place to be. And we are not talking only about national markets. We are not talking about, you know, investing only in Germany or Spain or in Poland. But we need to think about the digital single market at large, European digital single market, which should, at this time of the, you know, like a European Union history, be completed, and apparently it's not. I mean, the fragmentation is still there, right? So my question is, do you believe, gentlemen, that we can overcome this national egoism a little bit, also when it comes to investments? Because, Alexander, you mentioned that governments, okay, maybe right now they are not particularly super positioned to invest heavily in cybersecurity due to the budgetary constraints. But something tells me that even if they will decide to do that, they will focus mainly on their local markets. But if that will be the mindset, as Patrick said, we will never go, you know, with the strong Europe, with the digital autonomy, strategic autonomy, if you will. Do you feel that there is any chance that we can change this mindset and finally start thinking through the perspective of Europe as a whole continent? And that will be a question to all of you, gentlemen. We still have 4 minutes to discuss this idealistic scenario, let me put it this way.
My answer will be very short because we do not have much time. All solutions that are created on the Polish market or CE market should be global. And we need to cooperate as Europe together, because as of today, the European market is fragmented much. If you take a look on Estonia, which is a very small market, but very successful in terms of number of successful companies, each product they create is global. So as long as we are cooperating together within Europe, we are creating global solutions, there is a chance to win on this market. And this is what professional American VC funds are looking for. There will be more and more American funds looking for interesting solutions in CE. I don't want to talk much because there is at least one fund that is active in this region, American one. Cybersecurity calls, I don't remember this name, but maybe in a second. More and more players are interested in this market, but in terms of your question, we need to be the startups needs to be global. Countries should cooperate together, and this is the solution how to win on this market.
Thank you so much. Carlos, your comments.
There's no way around it. So we have very good technology. We need to be sovereign on that front. At national level, we cannot solve the problem. We are having non-EU investors coming, grabbing companies and taking them to other markets that, by the way, are the biggest markets. So our companies will need to go there anyway. And so either we have the means to retain those companies in Europe, and retaining, it's not forcing them to be in Europe. It's being able to play in a competitive way with non-EU investors in order for them to reach a global leadership position, right, supported by European capital. So I don't think there's a way around it. And by the way, cybersecurity is not just about being the leaders in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity will be fundamental for the adoption of new technologies like AI. And that will bring huge challenges by its turn.
And that's something that I have a feeling that we tend to forget, that actually cybersecurity is just an enabler for other technologies to thrive, right? And so we cannot talk about, like investing in, I don't know, dual use technologies without thinking about cybersecurity as an underlying factor. Patrick, so we are just, running out of time, but I would like to actually come back to this discussion. Do you believe that we can finally start thinking through the prism of Europe as a whole? Or do you see that, those tendencies to focus on the national markets will prevail?
I would mention what you mentioned. We have no choice, right? What is the weight of individual countries in Europe against the US or China or other forces in this world? If we want to be competitive, we need more of Europe. And more of Europe is maybe less fragmentation of the market, less legislation, facilitating the development of startup companies in the European market. And I think let's also try to be positive and optimistic. There are trends, there are areas where we see that happening. For instance, in fintech, there is a lot of regulation that have been passed at European level, which allows the fintech operating on a pan-European level. So what we see now is that fintech companies which are developing outside of the EU 27 relocate to the EU 27 to benefit from the laws that have been passed at European level. This is actually what we need in the future, is more regulations, but regulation that will facilitate the expansion of the companies, of the startup companies in the European Union, and perhaps less national legislation, more at European level, because I think indeed we have no choice. The geopolitics today are clearly should be not a wake-up call, but an electroshock for all of us.
Thank you so much, and that's exactly the message that we will try to convey as EXO while we will be cooperating among the others on the Polish presidency, something that was announced yesterday. So thank you for this advice. I think that this is something that should be heard in Brussels as well, but also in other capital cities all across Europe. So we will do our best to convey the message. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel. Unfortunately, we just came to the end, but I hope that the audience will join me in thanking our excellent panelists for this splendid discussion. Thank you so much for being with us.